Can I get seashells and throwing them to tourists? I mean, that poor man.
We are live.
All right. You guys ready?
We are live.
Yeah.
Yay!
I used to do it like this where I drop in. Man, that's so loud. I used to do it like this where I drop in.
The hot takes.
Yeah. So I decided to do it this time because I feel like what's been happening is the stuff that we capture is really good.
Yeah, and a lot of it isn't.
It isn't. But hey, I feel like we've had a lot of good momentum in the run up to the start of the show the last couple weeks. So I thought, hey, when I just randomly drop the needle while we're talking about what's going on with Disney, and then a little bit of a cold open, right?
And it only it's halfway across the record. It's all right.
Definitely a cool cold open, but I mean, it leads right into the show though, as far as what we're talking about, right? Because people are crying about this Haunted Mansion release, which I'm sure it's a decent movie, but bro, Oppenheimer came out and Mission Impossible. Why the hell would you release that in the same time frame? Like,
don't
you know what I mean?
Barbie. You're burying the lead there. Barbie came out.
All got destroyed by Barbie.
Right?
Barbie.
Yeah.
I mean, it was Barbenheimer, wasn't it?
Barbenheimer, yeah.
Come on, that really, Disney must be like spinning its wheel. Like,
what's going on, everyone?
Yes, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. We are back.
Hey.
Thank you. Standing ovation. All right, we're back. That's what happened to hear from you.
R2. Oh, man.
All right, let's get serious, folks.
What
Come
do we
on.
open the
Come
show?
on, stop messing around here. These people came for a show.
Yeah. I don't know if it's a shot or not, but what the hell? Because we haven't been on in a couple weeks. But with the writer's strike going on, are we even able to do what we're doing?
Yes. We're the only ones that can. And we're going to write every Star Wars story from now until they get back to work.
I feel like if we were talking about specific Star Wars media that was coming out from Disney, I mean, yes, perhaps we would be crossing the picket line. However, what we're doing tonight certainly is not crossing the picket line because we'll be stealing intellectual property of Disney's for our own artistic purposes. That's perfectly fine. I'm sure anyone would be cool with that outside of Disney, right?
Right.
We're letting certain media and tools do the writing for us.
We're definitely.
Well, that's the thing. You can't.
Chatbot ain't on strike. I know that.
Well, look. When was the last time we didn't use a tool to write? Frankly,
you're right. You're Still City. You're exactly right. I mean, the tools that you that you used to write with back in the day, they used ink in a bottle, and ink in a pen. They dipped it in the thing. Yeah, they wrote the Constitution with that. Yep.
Yeah. Well, we had an early glimpse.
Now we can move on to actual nerd information.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sure. Hey, how about it? How about a segment? But first, listen. I'd love to get to nerd news, but I think we all know what has to happen before we do any of that.
Yeah, bro. We gotta pay the bills. We gotta pay the bills.
DP, pay those bills.
DP, lead us in, please.
Right. So make sure that you go to your favorite website, nerdcyclopedia.com, people, where you will see all your favorite fan fiction. Yes. Yeah. Star Wars goodness. All right. And you will also make sure while you're there reading our great fan fiction, we are also on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and also on TikTok at Nerdcyclopedia. So make sure that you visit all your social media favorite social media platforms. So we are there. If you're listening to us on podcasts, we're on iHeartRadio, Spotify, TuneIn, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher. No longer. I heard that was about to be defunct, but if you were on there, we were on there. If you're not, you're not. So
it's gone. Yeah, they're done. SiriusXM has taken it out back and noted it has rabies.
Put it to bed.
That's what's happened. Sorry.
Wow. Watch us on YouTube. Subscribe to us. Hit that notification button. So anytime that you're on and we're on, you know that we're on. If you're watching us on Facebook, thank you. Check out our Facebook group, Carmen Bounty BS, a Star Wars group. You see all your favorite memes and all your favorite you get our fanfic, stuff on there as well, and also all your favorite content on Star Wars that we present to you. Leave us some feedback too. Nerds at nerdcyclopedia.com. We love getting your feedback and you letting us know what you think about our stuff.
But only if it's good.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't want to hear any negative because we're already like really sad. So,
every day.
Yeah, every day. Because, we don't need anything else bringing us down.
Yeah.
That's
stuff's not that bad over here, guys. Like things are all right. So I don't know.
One section of the country.
Sorry.
Yeah.
The West End, right? The west side of town. That's it.
Just keeping it real, dog.
It's okay. Look, you're allowed to have your own opinions about what's going on in the world. That's part of what being alive is, man.
This is America. We will have our own opinion when we
America.
Go ahead, T. Mitch.
No, yeah, guys. Last time we were on, we discussed basically the fate of our two young heroines and heroes. We have basically Luke and Leia, and we were discussing our storyboard, the breakout, as far as what we were going to do, who was going to train with who. So, today will be our breakout story. We're going to break it, basically, kind of what we think they're going to do, and then we'll go back to our labor union writing with our best
non-labor union.
Yeah.
Right.
So I guess before the strike, was it before the strike or was it during the strike that Twin Destinies was manifested?
I don't know. I can't. I probably before the actor's strike, but after the writer's strike.
After the writer's strike.
Yeah.
Before the,
Okay, I think so.
Correct.
I got you. All right.
So basically, we just can't act in it. We can write, we just can't act in it.
Nothing you will hear.
Play it out.
The names of the actors have been changed to protect the innocent.
We had a Henry Cavill cameo, but it looks like we can't book him now, so that's out the window.
Aw. That's okay. You're allowed. I think if we want to cast this story now that we're moving beyond characters that are canon, if you would want to throw a casting out there for a part that we're coming up with, I think that would be acceptable for sure.
So what did we do here? We flipped something upside down, didn't we? Right? So instead of Luke going with Obi-Wan, we kept Leia with Obi-Wan. Wasn't that a great idea? Because that's really what Disney was starting to project.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah.
Leia was going to be mentored by Obi-Wan, and Luke, well, we didn't know, but Ahsoka was a great pick because Ahsoka would really be able to channel that dark side, but then control it because she already had that potential. But we don't know that yet because we haven't seen the Ahsoka series. She could be off the rails as far as a teacher goes. But I like the idea that we flipped the teaching, the mentorship. We flipped it, and I think it's going to give us a nice new feel to the whole story. I did not like that we had to kill Tarkin that way. I don't think that Anakin should have that privilege to take Moff Tarkin out. That just didn't fit well with me. But that's just me and how I perceive the whole Star Wars reality. But in this version, I can accept it. But that's generally, I think that what we have in store for us is a great spin on how these two young Jedi are going to be developed through different, I don't know what we call them. Like Obi-Wan wasn't really in the picture in A New Hope that we knew until years later. So now we're seeing him more of it as a teacher, a guider, but he's looking at Leia, not Luke. So that spins things in a different direction for me.
It would, because he wouldn't be, I don't think, with the way we're taking this, he's not going to be as much of a hermit, right?
Yeah. He's going to be more hands-on.
Yeah. So that'll kind of change really what we see, how we perceive Obi-Wan in Episode 4. I think the more interesting story is the Ahsoka and Luke, because Luke's basically a young carbon copy of a young Anakin, right? Mm-hmm. So that whole character dichotomy of like how does she control him, right? Because she knows how Anakin is, and Luke is just as stubborn, right? So, and Ahsoka's stubborn, right? So it's kind of like two of the
It
positive side
works.
of the batteries reacting, right? I don't
Yeah.
know. It'll be fun. So I think that'll be a. I mean, that's almost like a Tale of the Jedi, almost, right? If they were to do it, because they're both hard headed, they're both stubborn. I think that they would both get each other in trouble, kind of like we saw in the Clone Wars, right, with Ahsoka and Anakin. So I
Hmm.
think that's like good material, even if it was canon material. I think that would be really good material to see like a Luke and Ahsoka.
What
And,
if
and
all right, go ahead, Ken.
no, yeah, no, go ahead, DP. I'll hold. I'll hold.
I was just thinking about Leia and darkness, exploring darkness within a character. Leia has always been presented as like, the representation of good and everything. But we know with like the Skywalkers, they do have like a dark side with them and stuff. Luke, is a hero of the story, but in some instances he's like, the two-face, the flip of that coin and everything. If he's one way, then he has a potential to go the other side with the same type of fear and what I want to say, energy, passion or what have you. Being that their father was Anakin, how about exploring like Leia's potential dark side?
I think some of this comes down to how Obi-Wan trains her versus how
Right.
Ahsoka trains Luke. And I think it comes down to what, Ahsoka, I think, enjoyed her relationship with Anakin a lot more than Obi-Wan did. I think that Obi-Wan would not enjoy the parts about Leia that remind him of Anakin the way Ahsoka would like the stuff that Luke does that reminds her of Anakin. And remember, in this story, Anakin's around. Like, he's still going to be
Yeah.
a piece of this too,
Yeah.
running the Republic's military or whatever, while Padme's in charge of everything. So they're still kicking around, and there was no betrayal of the Jedi here. Like,
Right.
there was no Darth Vader or anything like that.
Yeah.
And he's able to take the helmet on and off.
She only does that. That was just a joke for the script to be funny.
Yeah. Well, no, I like that.
To have him put in the suit.
I like that too. Yeah,
I like that he could say, okay, I'm going to be Vader now because I need to accomplish XYZ. Like, I need to do this. I need to make sure that these people really fear me. But on the other hand, he took the helmet off and he was more devastating because that's when he.
It was more the she versus the Emperor,
Yeah.
Sidious type, that kind of character dichotomy. So yeah, that is something we might be able to explore. I mean, having a protagonist, though, I feel like the only protagonist we can go with is Luke, right? He's hard-headed. Ahsoka's hard-headed. She really is not trained to be a Jedi Master, so can she really train a Jedi? So maybe it's this absolute power thing that Luke just, she loses control of him. I mean, maybe
You talking about antagonist? You said protagonist.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, antagonist. Yeah,
okay.
we need an antagonist. Yeah, so maybe he has to be the antagonist in this story, where like, and then if this is a family story, we bring it back to Anakin. It's kind of like that Kylo Ren kind of Ben Skywalker, or Ben Solo type. Brings it back to somehow Anakin brings Luke back rather than Luke bringing Dad back, right? So.
And then what happens when Luke and Leia, after 5 years of training, come back together again? Where's their head at? Like, are they still as connected brother and sister as they were? Or now have they gone on? Are they now in different headspaces?
Well, I think
more the,
it's incumbent on us to show a lot of information when they do meet.
Right.
We have to show that their skill trees have been divergent, right? And to your point, T-Mitch, I think Luke's, more of a soldier archetype, like from Code, it's the Old Republic, right? He's a soldier. He's the guy that was bashing somebody with the sword, right? That's like his main thing. And Leia can be more philosophical and cautious, diplomatic, right? Like Obi-Wan's a negotiator, and if and remember, he's not training Leia through the lens of I failed previously, right? He's training her through the lens of I trained literally the greatest, most powerful Jedi ever. So his confidence is going to be a lot higher. And I think that would be like Leia would be much more sure of herself that Luke would be, right, at first. And when they meet, it should be, I almost feel like it should be a reverse circumstance of how they meet in New Hope, right? Where Luke has been, has been captured or something like that, and Leia shows up to rescue him.
Well, how would the tree, or well, since Anakin is still, Anakin, and Padme is still around and everything. How does the parents being involved with their lives connect with how children, how how they end up growing up? Like how do they end up splitting up, then coming back together? Or why would they if both of the parents are still in connection with their kids?
There would have to be check-ins. They would have to check in every now and again with Obi-Wan and Ahsoka and see how things are going with their kids. Like a babysitter. If you had a nanny, but that they were taking care of your kid.
So as parents, they wouldn't they wouldn't try to connect their kids. They would just let them be separate,
because they already have separate ideas. I mean, the script shows us that Padme and Anakin had very, very separate ideas about how their children should be guided. And I think that's why the decisions were made that Ahsoka went with Luke and Obi-Wan went with Leia. And I didn't think it had anything to do with what Disney had already put in place, this relationship with Leia and Obi-Wan. I just think it made sense from the point of view of the parents and what they thought how their kids should be guided. But they would have to check in every now and again with, the mentors, the nannies.
But so the parents are okay with their kids being separated for a long period of time.
That's typically that's the rule of the Jedi, though, right? You have to be disconnected from that attachment, right?
It's like boarding.
Attachment's the biggest thing, is that you have to separate yourself in order to ascend into being a Jedi or a youngling. So I don't think they would have an issue because Anakin's went through it, and I'm sure he would explain that to Padme as far as, look, we have to let them go. They're at the kind of teenage age, kind of like Scouts, right? You go to Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, whatever. You have to.
And the parents too. You're talking about like the president of the galaxy, and you're talking about the first lady, but she has actual power. I mean, you're talking about parents that have big jobs, and they have a lot of things that are on their plate. Raising kids, training Jedi ain't one of them.
So that would bring me to a good conflict with the kids having, or the teens, or whatever you want to call them, having more of a animosity, or some type of thing with not having a good relationship with their parents and everything. As maybe another reason for them being as separate as they are, because we're thinking about them as like a family unit with them being still around. And Anakin and Luke and Leia, going on their separate, tutelage and everything. But they're still They're still a family,
Well, here's a question for you on that. In that vein, which is Padme's favorite? Which of the twins is Padme's favorite? Which of the twins is Anakin's favorite? Is it the same? Is it different? I just want to know what you think.
Yeah. I think it's. I don't know if there's a favorite necessarily, but the way
I don't think Padme will pick a favorite.
I think the way DP's leading the story is kind of even.
Favorite.
Yeah, it's almost like real life, right? So if you think about how you're leading a DP, so it leads perfectly into, typically women are used as caregivers, right? So if any separation happens, Padme and Leia would be more understanding, as we even seen in the show, right? More understanding to separation from parents. Women are caregivers. They understand that, right? I think if anything, it's the more relationship with Luke, right? So a lot of males lose a father figure. It becomes more jealousy. So I think this can steer this whole machine towards Luke's anger, right? Because I'm not around Dad. Like, Dad's not around. Like, I'm training. As we saw even with him training with Obi-Wan in the real life series, how frustrated he was using the bots with the lightsaber off the bat, right? So his anger, that kind of hate, and that's something that Ahsoka can see on early, like, whoa, like, this kid's really angry. Like, I don't know if this is going to work. I mean, she kind of says that even when we're talking about Grogu, right? About not, I can't do it, I can't train. So I think this ties perfectly if we were to have like that whole Luke dark side kind of turn.
I'm
You know
seeing
what I mean?
where you're going and
You're
everything.
seeing we're fueling that fire to why Luke would turn. Because think about it, there's no Sith Ultimate right now, so there's that power, that thirst for power. And if you know anything about the Sith, once you get that, I mean, he would be the Sith Ultimate, the son of the strongest ever Jedi.
Yeah.
You know, he has the young body. I mean, he would literally be the Sith Ultimate at that point. So, I mean, this anger. I mean, and then the big turn. I was thinking about this story, right? The big turn to the dark side is when we reunite them, right? So, 8 months, 9 months on the road, you know, let's bring them together. They spar. Leia whoops his ass because she's taking Obi-Wan's training on. Luke's stubborn, right? Luke's hard-headed. So he gets his ass whooped by his sister. So all of a sudden he's like, man, this doesn't work. Ahsoka's not helping me. I need to seek a way to be stronger than my sister. That thirst, right?
Yeah.
I got you. I
And
like
then he
it.
does some dumb shit, like accidentally like uses Force lightning on her, right?
I
Or like out of anger, you know what I mean? He, like,
Wow.
Whoops.
yeah, she
Yeah,
like
that
dusts
never
him out
happened.
or whatever, and he like hits her with the lightning.
Yeah,
And
that never
everybody's
happens.
like,
A
right?
brother never inflicts pain on his sister.
Right.
Ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was kind of like marinating this before, and then when you said it, it kind of ties it together to see like kind of Luke's ascension. I mean, think
But
about
I
it.
think Leia's canonically more powerful than Luke. I think that's actually it's
Yes.
implied.
Yeah.
I mean, she does pull herself out of deep dark space back into it. I mean, that's pretty crazy. But on top of that, you know, she has memories of Padme in the canon universe. So she actually has that imprint, and that's because she's more powerful. So it would make sense that she would do that, and it would make sense that would drive Luke insane because the stuff that Ahsoka should have him doing should be very like Marine Corps-ist, like you know what I mean, like you know how Yoda had him doing like obstacle courses and stuff.
Right, yeah.
I feel like she's real heavy on that, and he doesn't like it, and she's just like, this is how you become strong. And Leia just shows up and just is like, you know, meditation and focus and just whoops his ass
And
real
is
good
that because of the training she's had? Is that because Obi-Wan is just a better trainer than Ahsoka?
And he would claim it, like he'll probably say stuff like well, one of us trained the greatest Jedi of all time, when one of us is, and then he would say whatever point he wanted to make, right? And one of us is a 15-year-old boy that doesn't know his place, right? Like something like that.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like he would do that for sure. I feel I could hear that coming out of Ewan McGregor's mouth, like right now in my head. So Luke is Vegeta. I like that idea.
Basically, yeah, he's Prince Vegeta.
Prince Vegeta.
Before he became the Vegeta we know now, yeah, he was that stubborn Prince Vegeta.
I think that there's a lot of meat on that bone. The real question is how you have them, like how to separate them so that they're coming at each other like this, right? Like that's the trick. And I think, you know, what mechanisms do we want to use to have them come back together? I think a rebellion from the Outer Rim could be something that could be a conflict for them to get involved with.
Yeah, because we would need a powerhouse to help, you know, stop that.
Now that you guys are talking about that, this sort of can be like, you know, whereas the Twin Destinies Part 1 is like the Star Wars, the 4th episode. This could actually turn into like a trilogy where the last part of the third part of this story could be them coming together, or
be Luke's redemption, yeah.
Each other, right? Whereas the middle part of the story tells how everything, you know, came to be. Whereas like the final act of the second part of the story could be, you know, just that cliffhanger, you know, of Leia versus Luke.
See, now that brings, so what are we saying? What are we saying? that because the family, because we said, let's bring the family back together.
Yes, we did.
So we brought the family back together. Everybody's together. And
everything with the Skywalkers is doomed to fail. That's the ironic. It's sort of like the I hate to say it, the Kennedys or whatever.
Yeah. If you've got a family that's really eclectic and maybe off the rails to begin with.
I don't know, Scott, why I thought of that, but I'm just like, man, that family just had some bad
poor
luck.
Kennedys, man.
DP's history session, everybody. DP's
I think
history.
this is all just You can put it all on RFK Jr.'s anti-vax head. It's retroactive.
I want everything
karma.
to be fake and made up. Come on, let's not use history. Who cares?
Right.
I think-
go ahead. What were you saying, Ken?
Well, no, it's just saying if we're bringing the family back together again, but then because the family is so tormented, that was actually a really bad idea, and in the end, we tore them apart again.
Yeah.
So they're all positive charge batteries, and it's just never going to work.
Except the one force that is not a positive charge battery is Padme, right?
Right.
That's like the nexus for all of them. That's the person that matters the most to all of them.
And that's typically right in every family, right? If you think about it,
right.
yeah.
And the,
So how do we
should be the one that should come out, shining. I mean, mom should be the one that is the answer. So how do we do that? How do we say
these check-ins we talked about, right?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking there's a check-in that goes awry.
So say this, right? We were just talking about the check-in that goes awry. The first one that pisses off Anakin, that causes the angst between Anakin and Luke. Like I'm saying, whatever, they're coming in, and just like they did in the Clone Wars, Anakin's like, okay, I want to see you two square off, right? Just like they would do in training. I want to see a little training fight. So she whoops Luke, right? And Luke goes out of rage, just like throws lightning, but instead of hitting Leia, he accidentally
hits Padme.
He hits Padme, right? And that's like the ultimate nexus to then Anakin. Like then there's that angst, right? That teenage charged male versus dad, who he thinks he's better than, right?
Yeah, we definitely got an episode of Law and Order there.
I feel like we can't.
No,
I don't know
Benson.
that we should have Luke kill her, right?
No,
I
she
feel like
can't die.
I feel like he should, like Anakin should catch it and then get really pissed off at it and kind of go after him a little bit.
Like he pulls the saber out and catches it. Like he might have grazed her with a little bit of lightning.
Because
and
Anakin could do that, right?
And then Anakin just like throws Leia like all the way out of the way and just like kind of goes after him, right?
Yeah.
Like he just goes, and then she goes like flying like 30, like all the way across.
And at this point, does he put the helmet on?
No, that's just for space transport.
Oh,
he's not going through space, so he's just at home with his blue lightsaber flashing this darkness right at Luke, just right after he did it, right? Like two wolves going after each other.
I mean, it's fun. I mean, I like it. It kind of makes sense though. Like this is typically like an in-family fight. Two charged teenagers.
Yeah.
Male. He's going through puberty right now. He thinks he's the big shot.
Right.
Trying to, trying dad, and this is what happens. So.
Yeah, and it keeps that family drama dynamic, in the whole thing. Like I love like the tormented thing that Kim was talking about. The family is just tormented. So they came together. We brought them together for like the purposes, bringing the family together as a happy type of thing. But everybody's just too charged to where. Except for Padme, to that degree where she does end up being, I guess, almost charged with the lightning and everything. It ends up being like, just a crazy thing for this family just keep on going through. Basically we're talking about alternate realities with this fan fiction. The Skywalkers are always into something.
Which may be why George didn't do this. He decided to split everybody up.
Yeah,
it would have been.
I feel like that if you called them the Skywalkers in this universe, you were kind of being a jerk.
Like the Waltons.
Like you were kind of being a jerk about Padme, right? Because that's not her name.
No,
you know what I mean? It's Amidala. Right. So if you called them the Skywalkers, you would be being like, you know what I mean? Like, the way. I don't know, the way you talk about your political opponents in the real world, right? Like I'm not going to pretend like I say nice things about people, about political figures that I disagree with. Nobody does that. Right. I would say something mean like that about them as a diminutive, right? To say, oh, she's being bossed, like she's being run by the Jedi or she's being run by the military. It would be like talking about her like she was a dictator. Like that's the way you talk. Like, I feel like people would use that language politically. Like Jar Jar Binks is going to do that because I hate Jar Jar Binks. So that will happen. I can guarantee that's going to happen. Jar Jar Binks is leading the opposition.
Yeah, what I did like about this whole timeline, no Gungans. And one thing I just thought about, what's missing from this whole story that we're talking about here? First answer doesn't count.
Mm.
Droids.
Ooh.
No
Droids.
droids. I mean, no R2, no C-3PO. And they were integral in sort of connecting a lot of these characters together.
I sort of feel that they would not be. I mean, R2 has to be around.
Yeah, R2 is still with Anakin, but it's one of those things. And 3PO is probably more of a like a an assistant to
Padme.
Padme. So they're still around. It's just that their roles probably diminished a little bit, you know.
Well, we're not putting them on like adventures, like in the
Right.
movies and everything.
But maybe somebody forgot about them for the last time they wrote this script, and maybe this is a good thing to point out, so that we forgot the droids and we can just kind of put them back in. It's a draft.
That could be addressed.
They're a part of the whole story. They've always been there, and
right?
Sort of a running joke. You know.
I feel very guilty now. I feel like very seen and guilty about not having the droids in this, because you're right. They should definitely be involved for sure, and they should be rolling around.
I feel like
kids.
I didn't remember about that until you just brought it up now.
It was a good catch.
Probably keep you around, man.
You told
on
yourself there, buddy.
I'm the oldest person here, and that's all I care about, really.
That's what I have left is these droids. That's it.
The droids.
You're taking everything else from me. They took Darth Vader.
You killed Tarkin.
So I'm not asking. So should we do this in 3 parts, or do the next part is like the final part?
I want to see what 5 years of distance gives us.
Okay, that's a whole story in itself.
It would have to be, though. Yeah, we would have to do a time jump, right? Because the Jedi training isn't like a couple months to a year. It is, couple. So we would have to almost do the time jump to where, like, 17, 18, 19, whatever, like that, like late adolescent period to where, high school's ending, so to speak. And
yeah, so we would be picking up basically where A New Hope started. Luke's about 17 or 18, and that's where our story would pick up. But Luke is with Ahsoka, and Leia is with Obi-Wan.
That's kind of where the conflict would hit, yeah.
Yeah, and
that's where the conflict would start between them two, right?
Yep.
Because you got two, and you know how and
I can
two
see like
two teenage kids against each other. It's
I can see Ahsoka sort of like going against Luke, and Luke just gradually just being more hard-headed, the more that she trains him and everything. So that's like a character development.
Yep. And let's not forget, if Anakin is upset with Luke, why is he's going to take some anger out on Ahsoka, Snips, because she was responsible for bringing him to that point.
Mm-hmm.
So we might be really changing things now, because I get the idea that, like, Anakin, if he saw Ahsoka, let's say in the normal timeline, if Anakin popped into a room and there's Ahsoka, there would be sort of a warm welcome.
Mm-hmm.
But now we see a failure. Ahsoka has failed in training Luke in some way, and Anakin sees that. I don't know.
But what if it's not? What if he blames her, but it's really just his parenting, right? That's what that conflict would be, because we're going to see plain as day that what keeps happening is Anakin Skywalker keeps losing his cool,
right?
When he's doing these miraculous Jedi things, right?
Right.
Okay.
And so what nobody knows, nobody in the galaxy knows, that this accomplished Jedi is in actuality tapping into the dark side of the Force to just get these boosts when he needs it, right?
Right.
And Luke's been on the receiving end of that, so he knows it. So he kind of knows that Anakin Skywalker's full of shit, right? Mm-hmm. He knows that about his own dad, and nobody else knows that.
So Anakin's kind of addicted to the Force?
He's addicted to power. Yeah, he's addicted to power. I mean, because remember, we said he's kind of like Vader as well.
Like a junkie. Like he's got to have it in some fashion. And
he has to have control. It's like, I feel like he's a man who's shaped by his childhood as a slave on Tatooine, where he had literally no control at all over his life or anything that he did, and that has shaped him to a man who needs to have power so that he can derive the outcomes that he wants. And he is definitely willing, now that there is nobody over his head that can make him do anything, now that he's essentially at the top of the pyramid, he's more than willing to do what needs to be done to get the outcomes that he feels are necessary for the galaxy, right? And that is what's going to lead him to this misuse of the military, right? And my thinking is, if we have some rebellion show up and, I don't know, kidnap Padme, maybe she goes to one of these check-ins, never makes it back to the Capitol, no one knows what's going on. But what's happening is Anakin is using the military to enforce his will out in the Outer Rim, and that's why there's a rebellion, right? Because he's been iron fisting these separatists back in line.
Well, that's different. So Anakin, Darth Vader, the Empire was just, they were just doing what they thought was right. They had an idea. They had the resources to bring peace. I mean, you have to admit, under the Empire, there really wouldn't be a lot of conflict, because who would go up against that unless you were the rebellion? But now we don't have that. We really don't have the Empire as we know it.
I think I broke the story. I figured it out. How we tie them together. So
don't
how
write
we bring
it down,
the
or you got
together.
to go on strike.
Yeah, I can't write it with this. So, anyways, the reason that we bring them together is so that we have two separate Jedi apprentices, two separate Padawans, right? It's just like the real life movie. So they both go to Coruscant for their Jedi trials. Leia passes. Luke fails. So in his rage, they're outside, and she's like, "Yeah, I did it. I'm a Padawan," and there was congratulations. Luke doesn't pass it, right? So then he's like, "How did you make it?" Blah blah blah. Like, I know I'm better than you. And then he's like, "All right, let's, Anakin, being Anakin, all right, let's just settle it like a family, right? You guys want to settle it out? Let's train, let's spar," and that's what fuels this frustration that she's that advanced. I can just see her literally dispatching him with one arm behind her back, just lightsaber battling him, right?
Like Rey?
He's flailing at her, aggressively, and she's just dispatching him, right? Because she's in tune with the Force. That causes this anger, right? And the parents are there, right? So it's kind of like...
I feel like Luke is her equal in lightsaber fencing. I feel like this is one thing because of his specialization, right? His skill tree. He actually can stand up. He can stand up to her, but what he can't do is break. He can't break through her guard. She's dispatching his attacks easily, right? But I think that the fight itself should be very even, because his offense should be equal to her defense, but not better than her defense, right? They should be the same, and so it should be very hard.
But I feel like for her, it would be because her in tune into the Force, she wouldn't be sweating. Luke would be, right? Right. Luke's military trained, so he has stamina, but he's actually using energy to where she is more, like you're saying, defensive, and she's 2 steps ahead. So her Force awareness is that much stronger that she doesn't have to expel as much energy as Luke. So
it's like what Luke's doing is more direct, and so she can see for more steps ahead of what he's going to do, because he's less able to do deception. So it's just like a power pitcher that doesn't hide the ball,
Right.
And so we get Empire Strikes Back, where Luke got bitch slapped by a Wampa and he had the scars.
He's very pretty.
Where Luke gets the scars, maybe Leia does nip him in the face with her saber.
I think it should get really intense.
Yeah.
Really intense.
Because there's going to be a point to where, he's trying to defend or whatever. She parries him, he falls, or something happens. That he loses a little bit. And Anakin is being Anakin as an instigator, right? So he's gonna fire him up just like this is a teenage male, testosterone, he's charged. His dad's gonna kind of push him a little bit, talk some shit. You're gonna see that anger come out naturally, right? It's just like football with boys. Gets hit a little bit, get up, get him, you're not hurt, son. Then the rage comes out, right?
So Anakin goes after Luke. Anakin goes after Luke, and Obi-Wan and Ahsoka stop him.
They have to, yeah.
That's who stops. They come in and they're like, "Whoa, you got to back off." And Anakin realizes people can see what he's doing, and he's gonna go after him, and he realizes who it is, right?
And then we can bring Canon back in Obi-Wan fights Anakin at this point. Let's say Anakin loses his shit completely. Someone's got to stop him. Who's going to do that? Obi-Wan. Ahsoka isn't going to do it, but Obi-Wan would. So now we bring back the whole conflict between Obi-Wan and Anakin.
And then
the OG of Jedi and mentor. And Luke and Leia are like, damn.
So the rebellion on the Outer Rim is like the Rebel Alliance, and Anakin has been keeping all this secret, all this stuff that's going on, like him trying to bring them into line, and maybe it should be okay. I got it. It's a slave empire out there, right? That's something Anakin would react to in a very angry way, in a very, very vindictive way, right?
Yes.
And so he's going to go too far, like way too far, and what he's hidden all the evidence of this from everybody, except like the clones who are loyal to him to a man, to a fault, 100%, right? Because they're tied to him basically because he inherited Palpatine's force power or whatever we would say, the mechanism. And then these rebels want to show Padme what he's doing. So they don't kidnap her. They just bring her, like take her and bring her to the Outer Rim to show her this stuff, right? But nobody knows what's going on. And of course, Anakin's going to assume that they've kidnapped her and are holding her for ransom, right? So he's going to come after those people directly. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, we can just tie it in the canon, right? We don't have to say they're really separatists, or just we can say it's a trade federation, right? The trade federation's basically running the slave ring, and Anakin's involved, and
they would still be around because we didn't have like Order 66, which really kind of destroyed all that.
Yeah, the generals remember on Mustafar, and he's hacked everybody down. So that was like the end of the Trade Federation.
So they're still running around, meaning Anakin has some people to go after.
Right.
So he has something to do, like in the background of this story, like a scene every so often where he just like walks into a room where that like Newt Gunray's in, and then Newt Gunray's just like and it cuts away to like whatever's going on with Luke and Leia. But we just see this march of him just like nope, like just like cutting these people out. Yeah. Nobody can stop him. Nobody can stop Anakin, right?
And this was after he saw the sort of failure with the training with Luke and Leia, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, like I said, I'm thinking 3 parts. You know, the second part as a build up to the third where everything you guys are talking about is like third act. You know, all balls out and everything. You know, things just come to a head. But it's the second part is really going to set things up and really put the emotion into what we're going to go through in that third act. So I think when you do this second act,
the second half, like you're saying, you're right. It has to be that there has to be a point of suffering, great loss.
It has
we
to
got to
be
have
that. What we like to call it, that smoking gun or whatever, that thing that's there that's going to come back and just make the whole ending. You know, let's do this not like how the sequel trilogy did. You know, let's make it more impactful. You know, with that emotion. So by the time we get to that third act, you know.
So how do we kill Obi-Wan is the question, because that's the thing that strikes me as the most.
So are you saying that killing Obi-Wan is like a catalyst to?
I think that
maybe that's the thing Anakin wants to avenge.
Obi-Wan.
That's why he starts going after the Trade Federation, is because they kill Obi-Wan when they're coming after his family.
How about when Obi-Wan dies, it's an accident?
Well, I mean, we can set it up to where like Obi-Wan said,
it's an accident. Like Leia tries to attack Anakin, but Obi-Wan's getting in the way to protect him for some reason, and she accidentally kills him.
But it ends up being like a cover-up somehow.
I don't know. I think they're too advanced Jedi Knights to catch him like that. I think Hitch is leading the right way. So it would have to be that the Trade Federation's getting pissed because they think their whole scheme is getting. They know that Anakin's onto their running slaves, right? So essentially their mission, just like we saw in the real show, was to kidnap one of his children, Leia, right, on a hostage. And they, he just maybe there's too many droids, something happens, or it's a battle between. Maybe we can add in an inquisitor. They hired some bounty hunter, some inquisitor to track him down to get the daughter, right? And she's fighting one or whatever, and Obi-Wan makes the ultimate sacrifice like he did in the show, right? He has to defend her. He goes down. And think about it, if that happens, Anakin senses that, right? They sense that through the whole, whole all of space. When a Jedi dies, you can feel it, especially one that powerful. That would send like a cataclysm through the whole. I mean, Luke would feel it. Ahsoka would feel it. I mean, that's going to be like, that's the nexus point, right? That's the sorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Obi-Wan, they've lost Obi-Wan.
So I think if we're having an antagonist that essentially gets wiped away here, it's because Luke's the main antagonist of the third act in the ways that we said. So maybe Thrawn is the one who's in charge of that rebellion. He's the one who's coming, and he's kind of opportunistically using the fact that Anakin has been really committing some atrocities to gin up support, and he's the one that's attacking. Because I think to kill Obi-Wan, you need someone of that level.
Yeah, you wouldn't. Yeah, right. Because this would be like a calculated military operation. This wouldn't be like, oh yeah, let's trick him into coming here or this or that. Like,
yeah, if you're going to introduce Thrawn, I think you need to do that at the beginning of the second part of the story to really establish him, as a key piece of the puzzle,
So Thrawn kills Obi-Wan and says, like, well, if we can't kill her, like we can't kill Leia, like, because that would be a terrible mistake to do that, because that would definitely throw Anakin to the dark side, and he will be powerful enough if we do that to kill us all. So that he has to sends her back and kills Obi-Wan.
It's like, like send a message like to your father, that
tell your father we said we're tired that he's done. And then
Thrawn couldn't kill Obi-Wan. I don't think he was even powerful enough to do. I don't know about that.
Well, not directly, but I mean,
Obi-Wan's not a great pilot. You catch him in a plane, and he's not. I mean, he's better than everybody alive on Earth, but he's not perfect. He's not Anakin, so he's weak in some ways to the things that Thrawn does. If he's sitting on a capital ship in an engagement against a Thrawn-led Navy,
you think you could fly him into the side of the battle, the Star Destroyer?
Hey, why not? Why wouldn't Leia try that shit out? I mean, if he did it with Anakin, why wouldn't he do it with Leia? Leia's the same age Anakin was in Episode 3.
Yeah. Also, keep in mind that we saw that even on The Mandalorian, right? They have these, like, death troopers. I mean, bro, if they have, these royal guards that are, like, that were really inquisitors, right? Thrawn can call to his forces, because the Sith are still Sith. They're still dark side users. Hey, I need 2 Praetorian guards. I need 4, right? And I'm sorry, Obi-Wan is not like dispatching 4 to 5 Praetorian guards. Like, if they're like, look, I need to send 5 guys in and an Inquisitor, no Jedi is taking that on. So it's one of those things where, like, I'm sure Thrawn would set it up to be that far ahead that he would plan to have the right resources to take a Jedi down.
So, I mean, are we setting up for Thrawn to be the big bad here? I mean, we're bringing a big character into the story here.
You bring Thrawn in to kill Obi-Wan, but I think at the end of this movie, like, Luke kills him and flips, and that could be the end, the return of the Empire, the Empire Strikes Back ending that's bad, is that now Luke has, taken control of this massive fleet and is turning it against, everybody.
Yeah, everybody.
And definitely his dad, who he has seen more than once, do unnatural things, right? Exhibit unnatural abilities. And he's tired of this guy lying on TV all the time about how great of a Jedi he is. And he's, in actuality, this guy who's, lives on this razor's edge of rage all the time.
Right.
And that's what's driving him and his conquest of these areas of the galaxy that the Republic didn't have. And, Thrawn I see almost as leading a weirdo, otherworldly, like, Chiss army. You know what I mean? Like, not in his admiral style. Like, he's another player out there in the Chiss Ascendancy.
Almost like a warrior, yeah.
That just shows up and he's like, oh, well, I can take over all these. Like, I can take over the Trade Federation. Those guys are dumb. And now all of a sudden he's turned around like Alexander the Great, all their droid army, like, like that. And now instead of it being led by a bunch of idiots who are trying to make money, Anakin and the Republic are up against something that's driven, and Thrawn sits at the head of, that has, a genius level brain on top of it now, instead of a, marketing bro. You know what I mean? Like a finance bro's on top before. So it's a little different. Maybe.
I mean, so if, like you're saying, I understand what DP's saying, that Thrawn's a pretty big character to throw on. I mean, the only other way we can pull this off is we would essentially have to then create, and this would be something like we would do, is we would have to then, since basically, so Palpatine's gone, so there has to be another Sith, right? So Palpatine had a secret apprentice. This apprentice would have to be like our new antagonist that would do this rather than Thrawn. If we don't want a character that big, it would have to be him with some Inquisitors or something. Similar to like in Guardians 1 with like the Roman the Accuser guy, right? It would have to be something like that, to where like there was like the number 2 that was strong, that led on this power, because ultimately the goal of this Sith, right, is to get Luke to strike him down. Like, oh, you know what? I see potential in you, young Skywalker. Like the rage, like kind of like Palpatine was. But the goal is for him to understand his power, for you to become the Sith Ultimate.
So it could be a clone of Palpatine.
Could be. We can do
like a younger clone of Palpatine. It's like,
like I said,
like 20 years old.
Somebody,
what's that movie?
And if we do that, if we have a younger clone of
mini Palpatine.
So we could bring this character in, have a timeline, have a story. It gets like married or whatever, has a child, and that's Rey.
Who?
What if it's one of those? What if it's just some species that's really, really, really old? Like he's 5,000 years old. He's always been
like Yoda
lurking there. Yeah, kind of like Yoda, except just not Yoda species.
Not Yoda. Okay.
I mean, crazy. And no, not Yoda himself. Although that would be rad. To have Yoda just show up and just lightning people, right? The whole planet for it. But I think you could have, like, the Sith lend themselves to those sort of like almost Egyptology style adventures where you're like, oh, look at this tomb, and then all of a sudden, it's not dead, it's alive. And
I mean, well, think about it though. If you've played like the Cal Kestis games, which are in this time frame, the Inquisitors were still there, right? So like we can just say it's like the 12th brother or something, right? It can literally be an Inquisitor, so we don't even have to like make a character. We'll just say it's an Inquisitor. It's one of the 12th sister or whoever. And I mean, because the Inquisitors really aren't Sith necessarily. They're just kind of like Sith fanboys and girls, kind of like, you know what I mean?
Boys.
Yeah, they're not really full like dark side. You know what I mean? They're just like, I don't know, kind of like halfway in, halfway out. So one of them, we can do that kind of as far as like the person that might break it. If you don't want to have, because the thing is, like DP's saying, to introduce a major character, that would like even push the act even further. Like we'd almost need more time to introduce that kind of character. So if we said it was like the 6th brother or something, or like, oh yeah, it's another Inquisitor, like, whatever.
And plus, I think you're taking it away from the focus of the family,
right?
Of what this story is, the central, what we got a lot of character development between Anakin, Padme, Ahsoka, Obi-Wan, and Luke. Throwing Thrawn into it, it's like, oh man, even though it's a good idea and everything, that's a big personality right there.
Yeah, who was that? Who was the girl? Who was the black girl that was the we can throw her in there. Who was she? Inquisitor.
Make use of her.
Yeah, well, who she was? I mean, it was a.
I
It was
don't
a
even
similar.
remember that series, man.
Exactly,
I don't remember
bro.
anything about that series.
That's how good that was, right? But anyways, that's another discussion.
I can tell you every scene in Andor though. That was good.
Yeah.
So it's listen, it's not
Andor
empty.
was good, and you have to watch Rogue One and then A New Hope every night.
It just-
I do.
Do what the AI tells you.
How it's been hard to set aside 8 hours a night, but I've been doing.
But no, I mean, there's definitely a lot of meat on the bones that we have to discuss this week. I mean, DP, what are you thinking as far as? I mean, I still don't. I almost think like we need to continue like a breakout session even too, because the problem is we're button short against time because Ahsoka does come out soon. So
Well, we can always table this for as long as we need to.
Yeah, I
as
mean,
far
this
as on the
doesn't have to
schedule.
be done like before Ahsoka does, but I
And
believe
we're writing like the next part. Like we don't have to write the whole second, third, or whatever. We can just write
still
what's
have, what,
happening
one,
next.
two. Yeah, we still have 2 weeks. So if we did like another kind of like table this and try to put this act together next week, that would give Hitch at least a whole week minimum if he needs longer even. The week of the 16th, because the 23rd is the premiere, and we'll have to figure out how we're doing that because once again it's 8
Do you-
episodes, but there's 2 off the bat, which leaves us with
Yeah.
6.
And do you guys want to do any type of recap of because I was going to do a season 4 watch of Rebels before Ahsoka, just to talk about that a little bit. Do you guys want to do any type of recap or whatever before?
Yeah, so let's do this then. So we'll do some more. So we'll plan next week to continue the discussion on this as far as our storyboard. We'll get like solid lines because we have a lot of meat there, but we'll just kind of define everything. The 16th, so the week before, we'll have everybody rewatch Rebels, and we'll do like a season, like you're saying, season 4 recap of Rebels.
Hey, you got time, and I know I'm going to do it. I'm going to do a season 4 rewatch of it.
Hey, to be honest, what is on TV right now, right? I'm just being honest. Like,
The Bachelor was on yesterday.
I mean,
Yo, Big Brother premiere tonight.
you
Big
watched
Brother's on right
Guardians?
now.
Guardians came out today and nobody watched it. Like they're crying about that. Nobody watched it. Their streams are down on Guardians, but please watch that and you'll
Fingers
see what
crossed
I'm
on
talking
Loki,
about.
guys.
Like I said,
crossed.
Seriously.
please watch Guardians and you'll see what I'm talking about. How post end game, I don't know what happened.
Team, that's a lot of homework. That's a lot of homework to put on me
It is.
to make me watch all these Marvel movies, which I guess I'll do.
You haven't even caught up.
Concentrate on the writing.
Yeah.
The writing there.
Me,
Concentrate on that.
yeah, the writing. Me and DP will concentrate on the Marvel because
One day I will show you all.
We love being tortured,
One day I will show you all behind the scenes of how I make this robot do what I want it to do and what I have to do to like
smack the robot around.
Yeah. Well, there's some parts of it that's like, how they do all the CGI and it's really futuristic. And there's other parts that's like rotoscoping with a little brush and you're going in and drawing on the lightsaber. And it's kind of funny how there's a little bit of that and a little bit of that. And it's interesting.
Hey, it's a fun tool to use. It's like the pen that they invented years ago,
The pen.
There you go.
All right.
So yeah, guys, like I said, we'll table this week's discussion as far as we have a lot of bones, so we just got to start putting up a lot of meat. We got to start putting this together. If you guys have any ideas, as DP told you, please interact with us on Facebook. Send us an email if you have any thoughts, any other things you think we can take the story. But I mean, we have a kind of a solid base to what we want to do. We'll just continue this to kind of get an outline set up for Hitch to start writing. Some of this in quotations, like writing
It's different than writing yourself, right? It feels different.
We're in line with the strike.
But here's the thing: talking about it like this, I feel way less sensitive about it because the robot did most of it. So it's totally different. It's weird.
I'm sorry, Hitch isn't writing it. Chatbot. So that's where we have our out, right? Chatbot's writing it. So yeah. So Hitch
That's
isn't
who to go
writing
after.
I mean, he drives the car, so.
Hitch is just like the guy in a Tesla. His arms it's on autopilot.
Right.
It's doing the work. Hitch is just in the driver's seat. So
and look, having someone else do my work is, I mean, that's classic Hitch, right?
That's American. That's American way.
It is. That's a good one. But yeah, guys, another fun episode. It's great to be back, but you definitely will be seeing a lot of us this coming month leading up until, like we said, the Ahsoka premiere, and then we have another 6 weeks of that. And then hopefully that's leading us into some other stuff, or hey, I like this fan fiction stuff we're doing. Maybe we'll continue it. So, yeah, guys, it's been fun being back with everybody. But until next week, this is the way.
It's the
This
way.
is the way.